7 o'clock this morning. AV will walk right in. Let's get straight into the WTs, see what's happening. I have nothing to tell you about. Nothing on the Solo, Churchill Roosevelt Highway, Uriah Butler Highway, Western Main Road. Nothing. Saddle Road, nothing. Just a little volume by Santa Rosa and approaching Piarco from Maloney. That's about it. All right. Weather-wise, yep, it's 24 degrees at Piarco International Airport. Same in a beautiful sister isle of Crown Point in Tobago. And as Paul said, they said we're going to get some rain today, but predominantly not as much as yesterday. Sunny day with some showers. They're saying it's going to be, I believe, a 40% chance. Let me just get it here quickly. I had it here and I came out of it. Yeah. 40% chance of isolated thunderstorms to develop favoring Trinidad. As the day progresses, conditions are expected to become generally fair, but with a chance of brief showers in a few areas this evening. Partly cloudy conditions with a few showers and medium 40% chance of a heavier shower or thunderstorm. Tomorrow, yeah, what are they saying? Medium chance, 40 to 60% chance for isolated heavy showers or thunderstorms. All right. From late afternoon, conditions become generally fair. That's for tomorrow. All right. Let's see who sent us hellos on this Thursday. First off the gate this morning, Maria Marva, followed by DJ Ray out in Delaware. We got Garth Celia right here in TNT in Valencia. We got Miss Ingrid out in Tucson, Arizona. Oliver Man Warren, he's in Central Trinidad. Rena Boodoo Jennings, good morning and happy Thursday, says Dennis. On YouTube, who sent us hellos this morning? Oh, Rena Boodoo Jennings again. Good morning. Mo Gaines out in Aruca. Is it Friday yet? No, it's not. I thought it was Friday this morning, and I shook my head and I said, oh, it's Thursday. Marcia Rock, good morning. And Anthony Tinto out in Ontario, Canada. Good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us on the Power Breakfast Show on YouTube. And let me throw it across to the one, the only, Paul Richards.
Morning, Steve. Morning, everyone. Good Thursday morning to you. It is Thursday, the 27th of July.
Yeah.
A significant day of observances in this country's history, 33 years ago.
33 years already.
It was a Friday. Sorry?
Where were you when all this happened?
I have a very interesting story.
Really?
I was looking at NBS radio, and we would record a program.
Where was NBS at that time?
On Abercrombie Street.
Right, okay.
It's unfortunately a Guardian car park now. Yeah, go figure. So, yes, a Guardian car park, Guardian newspaper car park. So we would usually do a show called Program One, which was a top 10 countdown, live on a Friday. And that particular Friday, we decided to record the show. No, we record the show, but we would do it live. We decided to do it live on that Friday. And we actually were leaving. And I had actually just left Waterspain when I heard the mayhem break out. And it was a coup d'etat. Dennis McCormick, who was walking up Abercrombie Street, heard the gunfire, the initials of the gunfire, just before 6, and walked back to NBS and ended up staying there for the whole weekend, stayed on the air. It was the only sanity that the country had from Abu Bakar's commandeering of TTT Newsroom when Dominic Calaprasad was on air. Reading the news, and Jones P. Madera was in the head of news, telling the country that the government had been overthrown, which was untrue. They'd taken over Parliament Building. Bilal Abdullah and one said had taken over Parliament Building and holding then Prime Minister Ian Robinson hostage, shooting him in his leg. And TTT and Radio Trinidad. So, and then we were called back out to work on the Saturday, late Saturday evening. So we were working 48-hour shifts in NBS Radio. Had to be taken to, where is that? Opposite the market on coming up the highway. There was a police place there that used to hold cars.
Mm.
where the walkover is now, heading to where the walkover is,
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
after Baguenting, heading into Port of Spain.
Yeah, it's
On the
still
left
holding
side,
fast.
yeah. So we went there and were picked up by police minivans or maxi kind of like vans and,
Panel
and
vans.
panel vans, not panel vans. They were like maxi taxis,
Mm-hmm.
but they weren't maxi taxis, and driven into a desolate Port of Spain, and had to duck down in the on the floor of the vehicles when we were heading into from Independence Square because there was snipers all around. And then they found put up in front of NBS Radio, and we had to run out one by one into the building.
You were probably freaking out.
No, it was quite exciting, to be very honest.
I would have probably freaked. I wasn't living here at the time.
So it was very traumatic.
Yeah.
There's one time when we were dropped down there, the first day actually, when the Muslimin came down, the big drain is a big drain that runs behind that compound, and firing shots. So we had to duck down behind tables and all kind of craziness.
Wow.
And they ran down the back of the building because it was a police outpost, firing shots at the building.
Yeah. When I called my folks, my mom said, "What are you talking about?" And I had to explain to her, this is what I heard. And she said, no. It was after 7.
Yeah.
And then she put on the television. She said, what is going on?
Yeah. Fortunately, the country has healed from that. Because for many years after, we would be really traumatized leading up to July 27th. But I think we have really healed from that. And all the use of fear by members of the group for years after to extort people and all kind of craziness.
Mm-hmm.
Or protection and all of that craziness. But fortunately, we've healed and moved on from that now. I've always the only person that I always refuse. The only person I refused to interview, absolutely, was Yassin Abubakar.
Yeah, well, we've interviewed him a few times, and in fact, on this day, on
another point of it.
Yeah, another anniversary, we actually I had George Umbala Joseph and Imam Yasser Abubakar in studio at the same time.
Yeah, but I didn't see the point.
I did tell them that we are inviting both of them, and they said
he would never apologize for what he did to this country.
No, he didn't.
And I didn't see the point of interviewing him for him to propagate more nonsense on the airwaves.
Yeah.
So I didn't see what was the use of the interview for him to talk more of his nonsense.
Yeah.
It wasn't about accountability interviewing him. And I saw several interviews of him by several people and never took accountability. Stood his ground, which was his right. But I didn't see the point of interviewing him for what. No. So it's July 27th.
33 years ago. 33 years ago already.
BBC will be airing a documentary done by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service called Code 727 this evening. The police account of what they went through.
Yeah. You don't know what time? Probably after the news. Sure.
Probably after the news.
Yeah.
It's an hour and 35 minutes, and it's really an amazing account of what the police special branch who were in the Red House protecting the parliamentarians and also officers who were at police headquarters, which was bombed and went up in flames, and the police interaction with TT Defense Force and others at the army base, and the Americans' involvement, because the Americans came in and fired something called a C-300 the day before Abubakar surrendered. That rocked the Trinidad compound, which was behind TTT at that time.
No, if I was living here,
it's now a Digicel building.
And some Richard Bank as well. Now, if I was living here, I would have been at TBC at that time, because I had a show with Francisco Hawkins, which started at 6 o'clock. And we used to go till midnight.
Yeah.
So I would have been there for sure.
So I'm glad we've healed. Condolences to the family and the world. We lost Sinead O'Connor yesterday.
Yeah, we did.
56 years old. And I'm looking at some videos of her in the last week. I really don't want to play it back because it's so sad. Where she lost her son recently, apparently.
Last year.
And she was talking about no one is taking care of her. She was in a dingy room, a dingy space in New Jersey. And her family, the only contact she had was with her doctor. And she was talking about taking care of people with mental health issue. It was really, really sad. to see her unravel. Actually, she was interviewed by Piers Morgan just about a week ago. But she was a troubled soul.
Yeah, she had mental
For
health
many, many
issues.
years. She was a really troubled soul for many, many years. She went through global consternation when she attacked the Catholic Church and then faced severe backlash by people burning her CDs all over the world and rolling steamrollers over them. And she couldn't tour for a number of years. Her life was under threat. And then she came out of that and then went into a bout of depression. And then I think her son passing about a year ago, just over a year ago,
He committed
really
suicide.
pushed her over the edge. So I haven't seen it documented, but maybe this passing is also could be the result of a suicide, because she was the video she was posting in the last few days really seemed unraveling, and she's a great musician, Irish born.
That song
Very,
has been
very,
going for a long
very
time.
intelligent, very, very intelligent. It was very, like many Irish musicians, was her music and her art was steeped in protest, and became globally famous for that song written by Prince, "Nothing Compares to You."
Mm-hmm.
And I think went to #1, was the
It's
song of the
number one
year.
for a long time.
One of the years in the 90s was the song of the year, because the pain in her voice she was able to elicit in that delivery was astounding. Beautiful voice and very, very bright woman.
Yeah.
Very, very, very intelligent, very conscious, very sensitive, socially sensitive person. And we've lost a great soul. So condolences to her family, and may she rest in peace.
Yeah. Also, we
And
lost.
then we have.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say
Mitch
yesterday.
McConnell. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did. But let me just stay with this for 1 second. We lost Rafiq Jumadine yesterday.
I saw that also.
Yeah. National and West Indies cricketer.
Mhm.
Yeah, I remember that name. When I saw that name, I said, Rafiq Jumadine. He was a cricketer, so we lost him yesterday. So condolences to his family. And yes, Mitch McConnell, I saw that yesterday. He came out for a press conference.
He's a Republican. What is he?
I think he's a Democrat. I'm not. You checking it there?
Right. He's the minority leader in the United States Senate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was doing a presentation at a podium. I'm sure most people have seen it. And mid-sentence, he just froze and was blankly staring into space mid-sentence. And clearly he had some kind of neurocognitive episode, because it's like he went into a coma while awake, and they had to sensitively guide him off the podium. And you ask yourself sometimes,
Yeah.
when is it time to stop?
Yeah, because he's 81 years old, I believe.
And I'm not saying that people can't continue to contribute into their elderly years, right?
Mm-hmm.
But clearly he's past, really full-time contribution. Let me put it that way. Because he's been shaky for a while. So I hope he gets the kind of help he needs. I'm sure he's undergone a battery of tests since that episode yesterday. And it was all over the news, of course, so no need to play it, because I'm sure everyone saw it. And I'm sure he will undergo a series, or has undergone, or may continue to, because I'm sure they would have taken him to hospital for a thorough examination, because, I mean, he just looked out of it. He just froze and could not continue.
He did come back out.
This happened Shaka his club the other day.
Yeah, he did come back out and continued his press conference a while after.
He did?
Yeah. I think 12 minutes after he came back. He didn't stay long.
But why?
And then
clearly he had an episode. Why would they let him go back out?
And then most of the questions was how he's feeling, So, but he went back. But I'm sure today they'll look at it and say, hey, yo, let's figure out what happened there. So he just froze and stared.
Maybe it's time to call it a day.
It is. It is.
You've done well. You've made a great contribution, and go and relax.
Mm-hmm.
But don't do full-time work, do part-time work.
Do part-time, you know.
Good morning to those of you coming out of the West. I think Rice River has been completely reopened.
Yeah, that caused some serious traffic, I saw.
There was an oil slick on the eastbound lane of Rice Road yesterday. And so traffic had to be diverted onto the westbound lane. So there was two-way traffic on the westbound lane. You could imagine the traffic that caused coming out of the west.
It did.
Because the fire services shut down the road.
It actually took people hours to move from Mucurapo Lights to Movietown.
Not surprised. One-way traffic.
Yeah.
Well,
one way.
Two-way traffic and one lane. Let me put it that way. So I think it's completely reopened this morning, and you gotta be careful on the roads. So I'm wondering what's going to happen now.
Yeah, it was the westbound lane. No, it was the eastbound lane. Sorry, you're right.
Would you like to call Yasina Gonzalez, see if we can get her on the phone? I hope she's a little focused in her contribution to talk about the statement by High Court Judge Justice Frank C. Prasad, who said that
I did try calling her. I did try calling her yesterday evening a couple of times, but I did not get her.
So High Court Judge Frank C. Prasad said that migrants are being held unlawfully at the detention center because that detention center existed under quarantine regulations which no longer are applicable. In other words, either send the people back home or let them go.
One out of the two.
Because but there is a national detention center, I think in Aripo. I don't know that it can hold 200 people, but the High Court Judge Justice C. Prasad has ruled that holding migrants at that detention center is unlawful because it is not a specifically designated detention center. It would have been applicable under quarantine regulations during the COVID-19 pandemic, but that no longer applies. So the Ministry of National Security has to either find alternative place to house these persons or let them go. Now, keep in mind, these people are in the country illegally. So the state is not obliged to just let them go, as some people may presume. And that is not being xenophobic. You can't come into a country legally and think you're just going to be let go. That doesn't make any sense to me. You understand? But you also can't hold them under less than specific conditions in a place specially designed and or designated for illegal migrants, which we have. As I said, we have a national detention center, an NDC. But I don't know that, and I think it's in Aripo, but I don't know that can hold 200 people. You know?
Yeah. You know, it's been such a period of time. You would think that they would now have a system in place to expedite all this paperwork that needs to be done.
Thank you, Ambassador Philip Spencer. Yes.
Hey, Ambassador, morning to you.
Yeah. So, no, they have there's a detention center. We have a national detention center. I don't know that it is contemplated that it should be holding 200 people.
Yeah.
That's the issue. The issue is not that we don't have a detention center. We do have a detention center because we have, even before the Venezuelan crisis and the migrants increasing from Venezuela, the illegal migrants coming to this country from Venezuela increasing, there have been migrants, illegal migrants coming into the country like any other country. And there are people being housed there, awaiting deportation or going through whatever process the Ministry of National Security deems appropriate. But now that the High Court Judge, Justice C. Prasad, has said that they can't hold them there in Chaguaramas because there have been complaints about the conditions at Chaguaramas for a while. The country has started to send them home. I know they started signing deportation letters. We had the minister on yesterday of national security. He made a hurried retreat after being asked about the documentation of the Brent Thomas report from the Commissioner of Police. He suddenly got very tired and had to go rest. We appreciate his time. Which was hilarious, actually. He did a hurried retreat.
I will tell you, we will have the Prime Minister on the show. I'll let you know when. So we spoke yesterday, and he said, yes, definitely, he'll come on. So you'll just let me know by so-and-so date.
So he been telling you all that, though?
Sorry?
He been telling you all that?
Well, no. Wendell reached out to him, but I reached out to him and confirmed, and he said, no problem, he'll write it down, and he'll confirm with me. Of course, we'll do it by Zoom.
Is that before the
local
government election?
Yes, it will be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Someone said he's on TV6 right now. So
yes, he is.
So he's making the rounds. Well, Maximize, he's the most high-profile person of the PNM and the country because of his position. So I'll look forward to that. He's always a good interviewee.
Yeah, and his old office is here. His old office was the old one, his lit studio. That was his office.
His office in what capacity?
When he used to work, oh gosh, you're asking me to go back to remember.
In the geologist capacity?
I believe, yeah.
In the volcanologist capacity?
Yeah. Yeah, but
this
that was
the division of the seismic unit?
I guess.
Okay. Well, you can do it via Zoom.
Yeah,
you can come into the studio. I mean, the invitation is open for the Prime Minister, and we will now issue an open invitation for the Honourable Leader of the Opposition at her earliest convenience to also make an appearance. We will appreciate that. That'd be great. Also, we can't do one without doing the other. But this extended invitation.
Yeah, I did try to reach out.
She has not made herself available in the last 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
Since demitting the prime ministerial office, but you never know. She may accede to our invitation, so we issue an open invitation.
I'll try that today
to Mrs. Pascal Bissessa to appear.
Yeah.
It would be lovely if she appears to see her as Dr. Rowley. I mean,
wouldn't that be a dream?
It would be a kind of cool, no pun intended today.
Oh, geez. Yeah, watch that word today, Paul. Watch that word.
Yeah.
Let's say good morning. Good out to Wendy Ann, Mr. Carapo, JT, CJ New York, hot weather in New York City. Oh, yes. Have a fantastic day. I didn't give those weathers. Let's say good morning. Also, all those on YouTube. Ooh, a lot of people on YouTube. Carol Guevara, good morning. Son of God and Jesus Christ. Okay. Good morning to Gloria Gray, the Great. Good morning. Ambassador, good morning to you as well. Hope you enjoyed are you still here? Is he still here? Enjoy the vacation. I can't tell you enjoy the hot sun because we've had rain most of the time.
By the way, let's say good morning to Denise Plummer. She is alive and well. After a little Express newspaper faux pas yesterday.
Yeah, the Trinidad and Tobago Express.
No, come on. The Express doesn't usually make those kinds of mistakes.
No, but that was a big faux pas.
That's not fair to the Express.
That's a big
faux pas. The other one maybe not generally Express, but it was an odd mistake for the Express, who on their online platform posted yesterday that Denise Plummer had died. Now Steve ran into the newsroom with the information.
No. I did not run. Let us rewind.
Okay, you got the information.
I came to the newsroom and I said, I don't think that report is correct.
That is not what you said.
That is what I said. I said, I do not believe that Denise Plummer.
Right. So I made some calls. We made some calls.
A bunch of people.
And the person who attributed yesterday didn't know I called Bugsy Sharp. He said Duvon Stewart called him. When we called Duvon Stewart said he saw it in the Express. Right back to the Express.
Mm-hmm.
We eventually got on to Denise Plummer's son, Jesse, who said his mother is alive.
Yeah.
She came off chemo last week, and she is alive and well. You see why due diligence pays off?
Always. Because it just went viral. I called my aunt who would know.
Well, I mean, the Express is a credible newspaper, so people expect if the Express posts something, full front platform, that is the truth.
Yeah. So when I called my aunt, I didn't get her, and she called me right back like 2 minutes after, and she said she didn't know anything about it, and Sparrow had called her to find out if this was true. So she was asking. We were both confused, and then it came out that they said no, she's doing well, and I said okay, great, thank you. But I didn't see an apology. I just saw she's alive and well from the Trinidad.
They took it down quickly. Yeah. Because I called the journalist whose name was on the story, and she said that she didn't know that it had gone up, and she was making some double checks, and then it came down quickly. Mm-hmm. And then they corrected it.
Yeah.
Yeah, then they corrected it. So they made a mistake. It's not normal. Winston Dukaran, who was the political leader of the Congress of the People, says that Trinidad and Tobago has not learned sufficiently from the events of July 27, 1990. He was one of the people taken hostage at the Red House on that date. In a Guardian expose written by Gail Alexander, he says, quote, "I recall every minute of the ordeal. I'll never forget it. It is always with me." He was then part of the NAR, the National Alliance for Reconstruction government. He was the planning minister. Mm-hmm. Of course, he spoke at Wednesday, 33rd observance of the attempted coup by the Jamaat al-Muslimin. And I wonder, do you think we've learned from it? When I interviewed the police for the special tonight, they said that because one of the persons was the head of police intelligence, central intelligence, and he said the intelligence gathering now and the way the national security grid is set up, it's unlikely that can ever happen again. He said he will never say never, but he said it's unlikely that can happen again. And with social media and cell phones and stuff, information gets around so quickly. Mm-hmm. And I do admit it's a lot more difficult.
Yeah, I think we've learned.
The time when Abu Bakr went on TV, it was the only television station, so he could lie and say the government had been overthrown, and which wasn't the truth. Mm-hmm. While they were actually holding the prime minister and members of the cabinet hostage, and 6 days of siege.
Yeah,
so I'm wondering,
just going to say that
if that could happen again, that could be a question this morning. If people think that something like the attempted coup could happen again in Trinidad and Tobago, or not, yes or no. So that'll be our question this morning.
Yeah.
Good morning. You're not joining us this morning, just a FYI.
Yeah. I got that message when I woke up.
Late into rehearsals for his new play starting this weekend, so he more than likely will not join us this morning. So,
yeah. Good morning, Brenda Isaac. Carl M. Jack, good morning. He says it's 48 degrees here. Where's here? Son of God and Jesus Christ is asking, when will you invite Farley on the show? Well, first of all,
he doesn't answer our calls anymore.
He needs to answer his phone.
Yeah, he doesn't answer our calls. He used to answer our calls a lot when he was vying for the position. You call him and he answered one time. Now we don't answer again. It's okay. Among the politicians I see traverse this beautiful land.
Mm-hmm. You just sit back and
oh yes, just sit back and sip coffee and eat popcorn. We've tried to reach out to Mr. Augustine several times, and he has not answered our calls. So
Carl M. Jack is in Baghdad. So good morning to Carl M. Jack.
So if he answers his phone and he accepts it, we also issue an open invitation for Mr. Augustine to join us at his earliest convenience. Open invitation. So Right? There you go. But he has not answered our calls for months now. Actually, since
Oh,
assuming the role of chief secretary.
that is correct. Since he assumed that role, is you can't get
I
him.
guess we were just one of the rungs on the ladder heading up. But guess what? The rungs will always be here.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say
No
nothing
kidding.
else. The rungs will be right here. Oh, you're back? Okay. All right. Come on.
Yeah.
All right. So I think it's a good time to go into the newspapers.
Yeah.
6:35. Good morning to you
Let
all.
me just repeat the poll that we had yesterday. So we get a couple more votes coming before I give you the final results. Yesterday, oopsie, I moved the mouse too much. Should the PNM be worried about Jack Warner's return to the UNC? That was our poll yesterday. You can vote right now on it online at power102fm.com or on our mobile app. And coming up in a short, I'll give you the final results. So let's get into the, as Paul said, let's get into the headlines of the three dailies.
I was just typing the question for one minute ago. Right. So let's start with the Trinidad and Tobago Guardian. It is Thursday, the 27th of July, 2023. So this is the 33rd anniversary of the attempted coup d'etat. Guardian online, after 14 years in prison, 6 freed of East Dry River murder. Heavy showers cause flooding in parts of Trinidad. After 14 years in prison, 6 freed of East Dry River murder. Chief State Solicitor tells lawyer for Trinity terrorists, hold your hand in lawsuit. 5 get U.S. Fulbright scholarships. Morris Julian, Kamala's alliance born out of political desperation. UNC official says no new coalition accord signed. Sinead O'Connor, gifted and provocative Irish singer, dies at 56. Brothers shot in the wee hours of Wednesday morning. And Denise Thomas' family says she's alive, well, and resting. So those are Guardian front page stories. Let's move now to the Express Online. Judge, migrant detention at heliport illegal. Denise is alive and well. After crime, shopping in South, 8 suspects arrested heading home. Calco, Guyana slammed for shoddy roadwork. Kamala, place Abdullah in witness protection. Put aside politics and deal with crime, so says Anglican priest Nolly Clark, who acted as mediator during the 27th of July 1990 attempted coup. Standard and Poor's affirms TNT's investment grade rating. KFC donates $0.25 million to tertiary students. TTYP celebrates 24 years with music workshop and concerts. So those are some Express stories. Let's move now to the Newsday for today. Ethical Council chides PNM campaign on 2 counts. National Trust reveals possible slave pen in Tacarigua. Napa reopens to public after temporary closure. Convict freed after 31 years in jail. Wow. Rawi to new municipal cops. TNT will test your integrity. National Security Minister designates Chaguanas Heliport and Immigration Detention Center. Is that before or after judgment? Anyway, Digicel donates US $750,000 to Digicel Foundation. 6 freed of killing Tupac in 2009, and oil spill on Royston Road. This is yesterday, of course. ODP emerges use of alternate routes. I think that has been totally reopened by this time. So those are trending stories in your Guardian, Express, and Newsday for today, Thursday, the 27th of July, 2023.
All right. Thank you there, Pablo. Now, let's get the results of our morning poll from yesterday, where we asked you, should the PNM be worried about Jack Warner's return to the UNC? That was our poll yesterday. The results are in for those online. And 54%, 5-4, said no. 54% said
which
no.
means 46% said yes, sir.
Yes, correct.
Right. So today is the 27th of July, 2023. It's been 33 years since that fateful Friday when the group of insurgents tried to overthrow the legitimately appointed government of Ian Robinson, held the Prime Minister and cabinet members hostage at the Red House, and created havoc in Trinidad and Tobago. So our question this morning is, do you think the events of July 27th, 1990 can happen again? Yes or no? Do you think the events of July 27th, 1990 can happen again in TNT? We'll put in TNT.
Yeah, put in TNT. Put that.
Yes
All right.
or no? You can start dialing right now.
Yep. 222-8255. Toll-free number for those in North America, 866-525-1099. Send us a message via our mobile app and website or messenger service at power102fm.com. And on YouTube, you can vote as well. All right? We'd love to hear where you're calling us from. So give us a call right now. Once again, our morning poll. Do you think the events of July 27th, 1990, that was 33 years ago, can happen again in our beloved Twin Island Republic?
A lot of the officers who were interviewed for the documentary literally broke down and cried because they hadn't felt that before the documentary, the police service or the country had treated them with any level of respect or honor because of their contribution. And they said the opportunity to talk about it, like, because the documentary started filming 2 years ago, over 30 years later, gave them an opportunity to debrief. And it was very cathartic to them being able to talk about their experiences because nobody ever asked them about it before. For 30 years, imagine that. They were never honored in any way by the police service or the country until then. And it was very heartbreaking for them. Several of them said that their families also went through a lot because 3 or 4 of them, their wives and children were told that they were dead, they had died.
Mm-hmm.
So they went through, the families also went through a lot of torture. So,
yeah. I got Esther Adams saying yes.
you're writing?
Yeah. Son of God says yes.
Are you writing?
Yeah. Let's see.
Do you think the events of July 27, 1990 can happen again in Trinidad and Tobago? Yes or no?
No.
Winston Ducaran, who was one of the cabinet members held hostage, said that he doesn't think we've learned the lessons adequately from 1990. Yasin Abubakar, who since died, led 72 other insurgents taking hostages at the Red House and TTT, blowing up the police headquarters, killing people. 24 people were killed after the 6-day siege had ended. Many others injured. Millions of dollars in losses. The country thrown back quite a bit of time, some suggest decades. Wendell Eversley has an annual
walk.
Using the word ritual, I'm not using it in any derogatory way, where he really has had strong advocacy for some sort of, I think he wanted a commission of inquiry. Is it that? Yeah, I think so. Anyway, we want to know from you this morning. Give us a call, send us a message. The numbers are 222-TALK, 222-8255, 612-8255, 203-866-525-1099. Give us a call right now. Do you think the events of 1990 can happen again in Trinidad and Tobago? I think anything is possible in this world.
Yeah, anything is possible. Dennis from Diggle Martin says no. Donna Clark, I think yes. Thank you, Donna Clark. Thank you, Dennis in Diggle Martin. Good morning to you all. Mr. Carapo says, no, it can't happen again.
Do you think the events of July 27, 1990 can happen again? I think it's highly unlikely, but the way I see AR-15 guns appearing on crime scenes and people spraying bullets, anything possible. May not happen in the same way, but anything is possible.
Yeah. Beefy Smith says yes.
I don't think it will be successful. I don't think the armed forces will be as lenient. I use that word badly.
Yeah. Morgan says yes to the poll.
I don't think anybody walking over their hand in the air with a white flag. Let me put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, after creating that kind of havoc and people dying.
Yeah, but
I think the police, army, and Coast Guard will be a lot more decisive in their actions, because a lot of the police didn't have a clue what was happening until hours later. Because, I mean, nobody even imagining an attempted coup. So it's like they thought it was a robbery. They thought something, prisoners escaped, until they realized, they saw back on TV. Or they heard about back on TV, because many of them didn't see the TV while they were in the Red House.
No, they didn't. We have a call. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Oh, God, sleepyhead.
Yes.
Jeez. Oh, my God, hear that.
What's the answer?
Yes.
The answer is yes?
Yes.
Why are you sounding so strong? You on out? Strong, had you up late?
I'm trying to mind my business.
It's
You know,
our
you know,
business. It's not your business. It's our business.
You know, you just leave here, you're going out and doing your thing and coming back in. I doesn't know, you know, sometimes I say, where my ex-husband gone? Oh,
Your ex-husband or your next-husband?
I can try here X.
Listen, this is the voting hour.
All right.
I go call back in.
Like somebody used it anyway.
Behave, Paul. Thank you, Zena. Good morning, caller.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
No, the good thing about the difference between 1990 and today is that we have much more media houses in play, and we have the powerful social media. So communication will be much better. And it's going to be more difficult to command any one state media and say you're holding the country to hostage. Right? It's going to be more difficult.
All right. Thank you. All right. Josie Richardson. My answer to the poll is yes. Beauty Culture said, good morning, guys. With all the weapons and ammunition that has been entering the country, I have to say yes.
Anything possible. The kind of guns you see in this country, they found a rocket launcher some years ago. They find grenades ever so often.
True.
Anything is possible, unfortunately.
CJ from New York says yes. All right. Once again, our morning poll. Do you think the events of July 27th in the year 1990 can happen again in TNT? That's our poll. Give us a call, 222-8255. North Americans, toll-free number for you, 866-525-1099 on our mobile
What happened in the U.S. Congress on January 6th, 2 years ago?
Yeah. Mike Black says yes.
And that's the big U.S. They stormed the U.S. Congress building.
Yes. Yeah.
And they run to the building and put up and that's the big bad U.S. of A. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
With National Guard and all kind of thing.
True.
Yeah, and that's the U.S. Congress. So if they could storm the U.S. Congress building, I mean, it was quickly quelled. As I said, I don't think it will be successful, but it might have some dotish person or persons out there with delusions of grandeur. Feel because they have a creator AR-15 could overthrow the army, but I think the army is a lot better trained now. I know that they've been sent on different training courses. Because of that experience, they are now aware that anything is possible. I'm sure they would have been trained. The communication, as the caller earlier said, is a different level of communication between people, and there's no one media house. We have like about 36 radio stations.
Yeah.
We have 3 free-to-air TV stations, or 4, could be 4 or 5, and so many online portals, and everybody has social media. So
True. Good morning, caller.
Hi, good morning, guys.
Morning.
Yes, my answer is definitely yes, and I agree with Paul. It may not be as successful, but considering from then to now, the quantity of arms and ammunition we now have on the streets, right, which is probably 100 times more, and the relevant authorities don't seem to have a handle on it or know where it's coming from. Anything is possible. All it takes is a mastermind.
All right.
but they know where it's coming from. They can't stop it. It's coming from the US.
Yeah. Miss Ingrid says yes to the poll.
It's just that they can't stop it coming in. They can't seem to stop it effectively coming into the country.
Yeah, so Slick Money Grip says no. Miss Ingrid is buffing you guys, folks. She said yes or no. Please answer that way. Thank you, Miss Ingrid.
No, we've actually opened the poll to a little commentary now. That's why we start earlier.
222-8255, toll free. North Americans 866-525-1099. Pearl, what is that? Codice says no. Thank you so much, Pearl.
Do you think the events of July 27th, 1990 can happen again in Trinidad and Tobago? Yes or no? I really think it can happen again. I think there's some misled, confused, brainwashed person out there who may fall under the spell of another brainwashed, confused person. Because a lot of those young men who engaged of the 72 who were engaged were really young men who were lost and co-opted. We still have the highest per capita nationals heading off to the Middle East. That's documented, widely documented. So we don't know how many go and come back with training in terrorist ways. You know, you never know. And as everyone else says, the kinds of arms and ammunition we see on the streets committing crimes in Trinidad and Tobago, you never know who will get what bright idea. It may not be to overthrow the government. It could be just aimed at disruption of the society. At some level, the society is extremely well disrupted by crime. People literally living in fear. There's a kind of, I wouldn't say it's a coup, but there's a kind of instability in and of itself. You are afraid to leave your house. And as I said before, if crazies could decide to run into the US Congress and run through offices and stuff like that, and have congressmen and women hiding in rooms while the president watched on TV, the then president watched on TV, you never know in Trinidad and Tobago who can incite that kind of craziness and stupidity and incivility and insurrection, really. So I will never say never. So we want to hear from you now. You can give us a call at 222-TALK, 222-8255, 612-8255. And if you're in North America, toll free. Someone asked me, why is only North Americans are getting toll free calls? Because they live in Europe. And if I were being we discriminating, if you get a toll free call in the US, you get a toll free call in Europe too.
If you're in Europe, you could call 868-222-8255. Trinity in Boston says yes. Thank you, Trinity in Boston. All right, let's hear from you. What do you think? Again, our morning poll. Do you think the events of July 27th, 1990, which is 33 years ago, can happen again in Trinidad and Tobago? Yes or no?
There were also some very interesting goings on behind the scenes with various people jockeying for prominence. I remember clearly. We were just laughing in the radio station, like, wow, human beings some quite well known now. There was an emergency broadcast point set up where the signal from TTT was interrupted by, I think, his then Major General Brown, who was in charge of the TTT Defense Force, the army at the time, to take TTT off the air so that Yasin Abu Bakr couldn't continue to propagate his misinformation to the population. And then Attorney General Anthony Smart went on air and discounted Abu Bakr's earlier pronouncements that the government had been overthrown. Dean Nolly Clark started negotiations. I think there was a truce agreed to, and then there was a report about what's his name?
Yeah, we have a call right. Good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
Good morning.
My answer is yes, but not as organized as it was in 1990.
All right.
Right? The out of frustration, people will just get frustrated and run amok. That's all I believe.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
John Humphrey
In Harlem says yes to the poll.
John Humphrey jumped in and said something odd and almost threw the whole thing in a disarray.
Yeah. The police headquarters at around 5:50 on that day was set on fire and gutted. At 6:20, several radio stations were attacked.
No, the radio stations were attacked before that.
I'm reading on Wikipedia.
Well, if Wikipedia is your source, good for you. Wikipedia is never a good source, Steve.
That's what they're saying here. I'm just trying to find out one thing here.
The Radio Trinidad was attacked the same time as TTT, which is just after 6. And NBS Radio, they threw 2 Molotov cocktails and other explosives in the ground floor. Fortunately, the main studios were on the 3rd and 2nd floor of NBS Radio.
Oh.
So the door was closed and the gate was closed, and police came almost immediately and stood sentry at NBS Radio. So they weren't successful in taking NBS Radio off the air. And NBS Radio joined the 3 frequencies, which is 100 FM and 610 radio at the time, and 91 point something, all joined and were doing broadcast of information. And at one point, Dennis Bekomi actually spoke to Yasin Abu Bakr and told him, "Why don't you stop your nonsense?" They have lots and lots of tapes of these interchanges, these exchanges,
Yeah. In the words of A&R Robinson, attack with full force. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Approximately 24 people died in that attempt.
After being shot in his leg,
Yeah.
they shot him in his leg. And Bilal Abdullah was the commander of the Muslimin at the Red House, while Yasin Abu Bakr was at TTT with others, holding TTT staff, news anchor Dominic Calipasad, and head of news Jones P. Madera, and other members of the TTT hostage. I think people at Radio Trinidad also were held hostage, and some managed to escape. That's in the back of TTT building next to Tatil on Maraval Road.
Yeah.
But it was a harrowing time. Very, very. Remember the looting?
Yeah.
Looting all over the country started. People running into stores.
I think Imam Abu Bakr had said, "Don't loot," which was like loot. Yeah.
He telling people to break the law, but he was breaking the law. Imagine that.
Hey, so I remember seeing a guy taking a fridge on his shoulder and going up the road.
Fridge, people, bales of cheese. I mean, law and order broke down, but I mean, and then the state of emergency and curfew were initiated by the TC Defense Force and the police service.
Yeah, I remember the curfew.
There was a dusk to dawn and a full curfew around TTT on Maraval Road. a 24-hour curfew.
Yeah.
So it's 7 o'clock in Trinidad and Tobago. Our question this morning: do you think the events of July 27th, 1990 can happen again in Trinidad and Tobago? You can continue voting. We have news coming up next.
All right, let's get into it. Evie is in.
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
6 men were freed of murdering a man from East Dry River Port of Spain after spending 14 years in prison. A High Court judge has ruled that the migrants being detained at the heliport in Chaguaramas are being held there illegally. The UNC supports the independence of the Council for Responsible Political Behavior, and soldiers in the West African country of Niger have announced a coup on national TV. Details in a moment. This is news to 7 o'clock on Power 102 Digital. I'm Avril Sinjalbab. Good morning. 6 men were freed of murdering a man from East Dry River Port of Spain after spending 14 years in prison. Victor Barry Alfonso, Marlon Simo, Marvin Menace Agard, Frankie Fishy Bartholomew, Daryl Chiney Wade, and Randy Ploppy St. Rose were found not guilty of murder at the end of the judge-alone trial before Justice Devon Rampasad at the Hall of Justice in Port of Spain on Wednesday. The men were accused of murdering 23-year-old Siobhan Tupac Lewis of Lodge Place on April 12, 2009. Lewis was shot to death while attending a wake at his girlfriend's home in Chinabu Village, Mova. In the trial, prosecutors relied on the evidence of the state's main witness, Adrian Johnson, who did not witness the murder but claimed to have been present when the 6 men were planning it. After prosecutors closed their case against the men, their defense attorneys made no-case submissions in which they challenged the reliability of Johnson's evidence. Although the no-case submissions were eventually overruled by Justice Rampasad, he essentially upheld the claims made by the men's defense attorneys over Johnson as he acquitted them. A High Court judge has ruled that the migrants being detained at the heliport in Chaguaramas are being held there illegally. Justice Frank C. Prasad said yesterday that migrants have been held at the facility for months when it was not meant to be a detention station in the first place. Justice C. Prasad made the declaration yesterday in a habeas corpus writ brought by attorneys representing a Venezuelan national who was being held at the location after he and approximately 2 other Venezuelan nationals were held at the Apex nightclub in St. James on the night of July 8th. He noted that the initial purpose of the facility was to be a quarantine facility during the COVID-19 pandemic for migrants who had arrived in the country illegally. But now that the pandemic is over and there are currently no quarantine regulations in place, those who were being held at the facility were being held unlawfully. The Ministry of Finance says rating agency said Standard & Poor's has affirmed Trinidad and Tobago's BBB credit rating with a stable outlook. S&P also highlights this country's good policy practices, stating, quote, unlike many commodity exporters, during boom years, Trinidad and Tobago saves excess fiscal revenues in the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, end quote. It said while the credit rating had a negative outlook up to July of this year, Trinidad and Tobago's economic and financial performance, along with its institutional stability, helps to stabilize the outlook thereafter. The opposition says it is pleased the Council for Responsible Political Behavior has retained its independence and it can be relied upon for fair deliberations and rulings without fear or favor. The UNC says this is important for the development of society and they are doing excellent work. The Council for Responsible Political Behavior was established in July 2014, emerging from the Code of Ethical Political Conduct formulated by religious bodies and non-governmental organizations. It said all political parties signed and agreed to the code, including the United National Congress and the People's National Movement. There has been no formal agreement document signed between the United National Congress and the National Transformation Alliance on their accommodation. Following the accommodations, United display on the political platform on Monday featuring Jack Warner, Griffith, and Prasad Basassa, questions arose as to whether or not there was a signed agreement for the arrangement. On April 20th, 2021 in Faizabad, an accord was signed for the People's Partnership Coalition among the UNC, Movement for Social Justice, Congress of the People, National Joint Action Committee, and Tobago Organization of the People. Yesterday, UNC officials said the current accommodation was an electoral arrangement and decisions were made among leaders who discuss and coordinate matters. They also noted statements by Jack Warner and ILP General Secretary Indra Maharaj that the ILP would be dissolved for its members to join the UNC. Warner is expected to be on the campaign trail again today with the UNC and NTA. He was billed to hit the streets with the UNC in Bon Air and team leader Brian Baig, and is expected to be on Moruga on Saturday. Several bouts of heavy showers affected parts of central Trinidad from mid-morning on Wednesday, causing flooding in several areas, with reports of flooding in parts of Freeport, Presal, and Couva. In South Trinidad, flooding occurred along the Penal Rock Road, the SS Erin Road between Davie and Penal, as well as Williamsville. The high level of rainfall also left drains in the capital city and environs overwhelmed with street and flash flooding in parts of Port of Spain, Belmont, Diego Martin, and Cocorite. However, the Met Office says that today should produce significantly less rainfall, as hot and sunny conditions are expected with brief showers at times. Of course, we'll give you more details in the weather report coming up shortly. You are listening to news on Power 102 Digital to 7 o'clock. Soldiers in the West African country of Niger have announced a coup on national TV. They said they had dissolved the constitution, suspended all institutions, and closed the nation's borders. Niger President Mohamed Bazoum has been held by troops from the Presidential Guard since early on Wednesday. He was promised Washington's unwavering support in a call from U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres also said that he had spoken to the president and offered the UN's full support to the uranium-rich country. Mr. Bazoum is a key Western ally in the fight against Islamist militancy in West Africa. Two neighboring countries, Mali and Burkina Faso, have experienced coups triggered by jihadist uprisings in recent years. Well, finally, here is weather news for the period today till midnight. Trinidad and Tobago, predominantly hot and sunny conditions, despite a few light to moderate showers, with a low chance of an isolated heavy shower or thunderstorm favoring the afternoon into evening. Gusts and street flooding are possible in the event of heavy downpours. Look out for a forecast maximum temperature of 33 degrees Celsius at Piarco International Airport and 32 degrees Celsius at Crown Point in Tobago. Currently, it is 28 degrees Celsius, both at Piarco and Crown Point. Recapping your headlines to 7 o'clock. 6 men are freed of murdering a man from East Dry River, Port of Spain, after spending 14 years in prison. A High Court judge rules that the migrants being detained at the heliport in Chagaramas are being held there illegally. The UNC supports the independence of the Council for Responsible Political Behavior, and soldiers in the West African country of Niger have announced a coup on national TV. I'm Avril Sajil Bab. That was news to 7 o'clock on Power 102 Digital. Look out for more news coming up at 12 noon and an update coming your way at 8 o'clock this morning. For more details, log on to power102fm.com.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
All right. Thank you, Evie, for our major news. Of course, you can join Evie again at 8 o'clock for our news brief. All right. Quickly, and it's hot morning already, 28 degrees. Let's take a look at what's happening traffic-wise. From Trinidad City to Orange Grove, not too bad. From there to UE, it is heavier. A little build-up by Aranguez and just by Barataria. Slow going into Port of Spain, not bumper to bumper at least. Camara Carenage, a bit heavy this morning. Nothing out of Maraval. Nothing out of Dago. Eastern Main Road going through by Macoya, and just after Champlain Auto, you got some traffic as you head westbound. Let's take a look down south. Make our way up north. Got nothing to tell you about there. River Road's a bit busy this morning. Chase Village towards Sugar Guanas. You got a little build up there. Volume and taking the southern main road from Sugargonis, heading to Chin Chin Road. You got some traffic, and just after Chin Chin Road itself, coming to the main road is also a bit heavy. All right, I got buff. I didn't give the temps of some places, so let's do that right now. Of course, I'll start out in Toronto, where you're cloudy with 22 degrees. Miami, you're at 26 and mostly cloudy. Orlando, mostly cloudy again, and 25. New York, same thing, mostly cloudy and 25. Atlanta, I should say, sunny and 23. London, cloudy and 21. Tampa, mostly cloudy and 25. Washington, D.C., mostly sunny and 26 degrees. It's going to be a scorcher for you guys in Washington, D.C. Your maximum temperature at 3 p.m. will be 37 degrees. Oh, my goodness. That is, whoa. Yeah. New York, you get up to 35. Wow. Hot. All right. Getting back before our guest join us. I got Leonard Naipaul saying yes. Do I have any more votes here as I check? I have Meb saying yes. All right, so let's do a tally here. All right. So our poll this morning. Sorry, Paul. Our poll this morning. Do you think the events of July 27th, 1990 can happen again in Trinidad and Tobago? That's our poll. Of course, it'll stay up until tomorrow morning, Friday, where we give you the final results. But right now, I have from our calls and our hits, I got 18 votes saying yes. I got 5 saying no.
I think it can happen again. It won't happen in the same way, but it can happen again.
It can.
You know, we got to 605 murders last year. Mm-hmm. We are over 300 now. Guns of varying levels of sophistication. AR-15, which is like a war machine on the streets of Port of Spain. We don't know how many there are or how many people have stored away. We've seen grenades seized by police. I think on one instance we may have seen some sort of rocket launcher seized. Anything is possible. The world is such a crazy place now. Absolutely anything is possible. And the good thing about it is that the law enforcement and national security agencies are a lot more well-equipped and a lot more well-trained and a lot more sophisticated, a lot more coordinated. Now, I think, given what we've seen in 9/11 and the 7/11 in the UK, that governments and states now are more equipped and more ready for any potential eventuality. But the dark forces also are more sophisticated. We have transnational criminal elements in the country operating with criminals here. You know, we have pretty porous borders.
Pretty much.
We have criminals who basically hold us under siege every day because we can't. You have to be so vigilant that you're almost not free in your own country in many ways. So, I mean, anything is possible. You just have to be very, very vigilant. But I do believe if some fool or some fools decide they want to jump out themselves, as they say, that the authorities will respond very, very, very quickly. And the response is not going to be as benign or slow in coming as it was in 1990. And I don't think surrendering with your hand in the air is going to be an option at that stage. Let me just say that. I don't think that's going to be an option. No. So let's go to the phones. 222-12. Sorry?
I said Tahaka Ubika is going to join us.
I I don't know what they're going to do with events with migrants now. I see one of the newspapers reported Mr. Hines officially designated the detention center, the Shagamas heliport, an official detention center. And he can't do that. The government can't do that. They don't have to have it under quarantine regulation. They could say any building is a detention center. You understand?
Mhm.
Once the facilities are able to house people in a humane manner. So I don't think that they may be breaking any law or any convention by saying X and Y is a detention center if they need to detain a certain number of people who are illegal migrants. Because as I said before, what I feel the government doesn't have a clear refugee policy or a clear enough refugee policy. I also do not believe that people should be allowed to come into the country illegally as they want
Mhm.
and stay.
Yeah.
You know, I think at
It's a
some
process.
point,
Yeah.
yeah, but at some point, you have to say, well, you can't continue to just let people come into the country legally and naturalize them. That is not the way it's done. So, and we'll see how it goes. Anyway, 7:16. Let's say good morning to Mr. Tahaka Obika.
Good morning, Dr. Senator Paul Richards.
Mom, you ain't get a red t-shirt yet, out.
Oh, jeez. Look where you start.
I ain't feel to get a red jacket and a red t-shirt yet.
No, I have one. But
You have one? Is one they give you? Nah, man. You can't have one. That's 7 days in a week. Campaign on fire all over the place. It can't be one.
En français, there's a saying. In French, there's a saying. Doucement. Slowly. You'll get
All
there.
right. Good morning and thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
How are you? You look very relaxed. Is it your new environment?
Well, I hope I look relaxed generally, but just the country. Things are. I watched the Standard and Poor's because we just had the Moody's upgrade. But the thing with Moody's is they measure the country on a different scale. But with Standard and Poor's, I noticed that because we are investment grade Standard and Poor's, but we were just above the edge, And with the Standard & Poor's upgrade, we are now firmly in an investment grade band and 2 notches away from getting to a higher level band of investment grade. So we are on the right track, really, and it's. I mean, you have to understand, right?
Would you have said that a year ago if we had these same results?
Right, so you have to always, when you listen to someone who uses evidence-based criticism, you have to listen to what they're saying. A year ago, I hope I would have said that we are in the right direction, but we have a long way to go. You understand? So at this time, I'm saying that we are trending in the right direction, and we are 2 notches away from what is the band? I want to make sure it's the correct terminology. 2 notches away from the upper medium investment grade. All right. So, based on the Standard & Poor's categorization of the economy, the reality
how old were you? How just before we get into substantive discussion, how old were you when the coup was 33 years ago? You'd have been 4 or 5.
I was 7 years
7 years old. Do you have any recollection of it? Were you living in Trinidad and Tobago at the time? Do you have any recollection of it?
I was in my parents' home in Harriman Park in Point Fortin, and my brothers and I were watching news. My elder and my younger brother were watching the news as all Trinbagonians did at that time who didn't have satellite TV. You only had TV6. No, they didn't have TV6 as yet. You only had TGT and I think AVM. I think those were the 2 channels. And AVM only had horse racing or something like that, and programs on Sunday. But so you watch news at 7 as a child. When 8 o'clock reach, you bathe and you relieve yourself. I can't say that part on radio on
if you finish your homework.
No, you have to finish your homework before the news. At the age I was in primary school.
That's true. You have to finish your homework before the news.
Yeah, and then you go to bed. In secondary school, going to CXC, you're kind of independent. You do your homework in the night and so on. But I was 7 years old, so I was in standard 1, and our aunt from Labrie, she cared for us. Her daughter would have just been born, so our sister basically, and our parents were in NJAC building in Port of Spain. So they would be there for months on end sometimes. Right, so our aunt really was like our mother, and Auntie Mary, and she put on the news, and you see this man with a gun, and I was like, "What is that?" You know, and she proceeded to call. Those days they had the dial phone, call the 623 number in Port of Spain, and then our parents informed her, "Yes, this is real. Keep the train safe. We can't move." Because they were in the NJAC building, so you could imagine the NJAC building was in the middle between the looting and the raiding and the takeover of the Red House. So it was, I remember it vividly from that moment. And then after that, it was seeing persons getting new shoes from people who came from Port of Spain. Because that's how you experience things, right?
Yeah. To your neighbors and your friends and stuff. You see what happened in their house.
It was in the holiday period, so the information didn't reach you as fast as it would have if school was in session.
Our question this morning was: do you think that the events of July 27th, 1990, can happen again in Trinidad and Tobago? What are your thoughts on that?
Trinidad and Tobago operates in cycles. I'm a student of history. My father is an historian, and we operate in cycles. In the 1880s, there was the Hussey riots. We know that there were significant riots at the end of the period of enslavement.
We had the water riots.
And then we had the water riots in 1903. We had the Butler riots in 1937. We had 1970. We had the coup in 1990. So there's always, every generation in Trinidad and Tobago leaves their mark on the society in terms of radical change.
But all those riots at different points were catalyzed by social discontent at some level.
And by a catalyst. So Henry Sylvester Williams in 1903, Tubal Rabas Butler in 1937, Macandal Daga in 1970, Imam Yassin Abubakar in 1990. So the question really is not just who are the persons involved in terms of which generation happens, but it's really which catalyst comes up, which personality emerges.
Well, personalities capitalize on, they can't capitalize in a vacuum. They have to capitalize, they have all capitalized either legitimately or illegitimately on social discontent, social unrest, people being dissatisfied with the status quo, whether it be equality of rights, whether it be unequal pay, whether it be treatment from a particular regime in their opinion. There's always a social context within which these figures arise and take advantage of that for better or for worse. So do you think we've seen those conditions in Trinidad and Tobago in the last couple of years?
And so it just takes a small match to light a fire if the embers are already, there. But the reality is there is always a significant discontent with every generation in Trinidad. So why should we think it will be different with this era? It shouldn't be different. What is our responsibility as decision makers, as stakeholders in society, is to identify areas where there is imbalances, significant imbalances, and work our hardest to correct those imbalances. What are the imbalances that are in place in our society? You have imbalances regarding access to land. So therefore, there must be programs to give persons access to land so that they can now engage in factors of production. Not just the house program that we believe is the be-all and end-all with the HEC and the LSA. Historically in Trinidad and Tobago, we tend to believe that as it. But what is necessary at this stage is access to land. And one of the programs, I do cooperative education, right? And in January, I was engaged with some young people, training them in the Youth Agriculture Homestead Program. At that time, to answer your question, if I would have said this before, at that time I was on the other side. You understand? We're talking about January here. In fact, I was firmly rooted on the other side in January, national executive member and so on. But I told the young people that this to me is an excellent program because it speaks to land reform. Because since the end of slavery, there was no move to ensure those that were enslaved got access to land in any significant way. There was also no move to ensure those that were indentured got access to land, except to say the giving of lands for the former colony workers benefited in a larger part, if we are to be honest with ourselves, persons who may have been connected to persons who were previously indentured. So in Trinidad and Tobago, we tend, probably with the exception of Tobago, in Tobago land reform was done in an ad hoc manner, but it was done to some extent. Because the Tobagonians, by and large, have a controlling stake of the land in Tobago. But in Trinidad, we have not decided in a systematic way. Even regardless of what has been done with LSA, Caroni lands, and so on, we've not taken a very systematic approach to saying, here's what. Everyone who came here, by and large, bonded with, except the settler population, persons who came from the French areas, and persons who came to work with through the colonial powers as police officers and so on after the end of slavery. So most persons came here bonded to some degree and were not afforded the opportunity to own a stake in the country. So land reform is a necessary thing that we have to consider. And I told young persons that this program to give young people access to land is a good way to engage in land reform, because you're not just giving them the land. You have to go and do training for 2 years. You have to present proper business plans in terms of your farming systems, and you have to now engage in it, because you have a lease that is for a period of time that if you don't engage properly, you can.
So not just giving away land for giving away land's sake.
Exactly.
Let me get your thoughts on what we see evolving with the amalgamation of the UNC and the NTA. Mrs. Pasabi Sess and Gary Griffith, and most recently, Jack Warner jumping back into the fray. You were an executive member, a senior member of the UNC for a while. Was there any discussion about this while you were there, and what do you make of this now amalgam?
You know, when you were very deep in an organization, you must always be careful what you see, and it is not because you are aiming to protect the persons in the organization, but it is because you must live your life by certain principles. So there are certain questions that you ought not answer. If I'm in an organization, the things that I'm privy to, especially given that my background in finance, I believe that there is a measure of confidentiality that I must practice. And not because then if I'm in a new organization, one would expect me to conduct myself in a similar manner. That if I see something, then I will just go to the public and tell everyone. So I am constrained by the fact that my proximity to the organization means I have to be very careful what I say, if anything at all.
What do you think of what do you think of what you see happening now? And Jack was part of the People's Partnership in 2010 to 2015, and now we're seeing, though there's no official accord signed, we're seeing the UNC opening the doors, working with the NTA, and now Jack Warner back into the fray. What do you think of this new development?
Right. So, and Jack was part of the partnership, and as a political decision, some persons from NJAC would have joined the UNC at a point in time where the UNC, where the partnership itself collapsed. Right. I would have joined 5 years, 9 months ago when I became a senator, as a matter of course. It was a requirement. I made a political decision that I believe that I need to be part of a political vehicle to effect change in the society. My leaving is because I was convinced, because it wasn't just one day I got up and left. If you speak to persons on the inside, they will tell you that Taraka was stewing for almost 3 years, knocking from pillar to post, trying to see if things could change. You know, my leaving was because I felt even if that vehicle got into power, it is not a good vehicle for Trinidad and Tobago. You know, changing the facade of an organization does not change the content of the organization. And there's a reason why many of the good persons who could contribute to the development agenda of the country, who are supporters of the UNC, are not part of the structure. You know, I can't see that will change, because what's going to happen is there's going to be a proverbial Game of Thrones happening in the organization right now. And the persons who are well entrenched, it's not many of whom, some of whom I left because of their serious, their important position, and the fact that I can't, in good conscience, help propel some of these persons to power, you know, because when you look at it cumulatively, if an organization has 1 or 2 persons who are unsavory, that is one thing. But when you have a core of people, more than 5, who have significant matters before the police, there was a time 2 months ago that they were telling me, you have to be careful. They're going to come and pick up this person for something that he did before 2015 when they were in government. I said, but I was not there. Why should I be worried? I have my life to live. I have to go home and greet my wife and children. That is not my concern. I'm not losing any sleep over what someone else did. Let the answer to the police. So, and this is somebody that I would have never expected to have been looking over their shoulder, because to me, they weren't even in a position of real power. They weren't at the top of the pyramid, but they were connected to persons at the top of the pyramid. So I'm like, so I mean, how deep does this rabbit hole really go? When you have more than a handful of persons who have serious questions to answer, who are either charged, who are on bail, it became too much. And when you ask why are these persons not being systematically removed, or where they cannot be removed because they can't move an elected official, the people have to remove that person, or you just don't put them up the next time. Why are they sidelined and replaced with persons who are better representations of the will of the people of Trinidad and Tobago? I cannot see that change happening.
Were you surprised when you were removed as a senator?
No. I mean, a senator is a transitory appointment. I don't have any issue with that. And I did serve the organization as an economist. In fact, as a senator, you yourself, you would know, you have to be very consumed with your work in the committee, your work when you have to present and speak and so on, and then other engagements that you make as a senator. But as an economist, every finance bill, I got an opportunity to sink my teeth deep into it and prepare different perspectives that were evidence-based that I could now feed to different ministers. A case in point is the bill that you all debated in terms of a year and a half ago, the Carry Forum bill, the CSME bill or the Carry Forum bill. There was a bill regarding the trade considerations and so on. And the special economic zones bill. So I prepared positions that several members of the parliament in the opposition could have used, which could have enhanced the debate. And I believe the opposition either supported or did not vote against those 2 bills. So I believe, one can't appoint to themselves any level of self-importance, but I believe I played my part there in advancing the business of Trinidad and Tobago.
Do you have any official position in the PNM at this point, or in the government?
No, I have no position. But I'm as we say, I'm a busybody. I spend my days researching, and so
Speaking of research, of course, we're in the throes of a local government campaign, and after this, no matter who wins, there's 7-7 now. No matter who wins, the business of local government will have to continue under reform conditions because there's a new law in place now. How do you expect one, the new corporations to operate? Or how do you hope they will operate under the ambit of the new law in terms of better services to the businesses, the people of Trinidad and Tobago? What are your projections and your hopes?
Just apologies. The grandmother of my children just called me my mother, so I had to just message her. They are vacationing in Point because I'm near the campus.
Well, you're always a father, so
yeah.
you're always a father. So,
and they say when somebody disturbs you, when you get distracted, it takes you quite a while to get back on course. I want to get back on course. So the question you asked, my apologies. What
about local government now? No matter who wins on August 14th and is announced on August 15th, local government will have to continue under a new regime. Based on what you understand of the law, what do you expect to happen in these corporations as they move forward? What are your hopes, and what do you think should be the new dispensation of local government under this new law and regime, no matter who wins what district or corporations?
Yes, so my main concern, one thing Professor Danisha Mehabir, who was our senatorial colleague when I was there, and he was my lecturer in macroeconomics, and he impressed upon us when we were students at university, that whilst we wish to fix every problem on the face of the earth, in Trinidad and Tobago especially, because of the long horizon it takes to fix things, you need to champion one major problem when you are going into a particular system. So you could champion different problems, but it mustn't be too much problems in one system, because the ball will be dropped somewhere. So with regards to local government, when I was still as chief economist, I consumed myself only with one challenge, that is local area economic development. So you have 14 municipal corporations in Trinidad, and even with Tobago, when I heard that they were looking at doing a Tobago bank, I did a proposal for that because I felt that was important, and I was looking at a similar bank for Sangre Grande region, because that's the poorest region in Trinidad and Trinidad, not sure what Tobago, and Point 14 and Mayaro, which are the other. Well, not really Point 14, Southwest Trinidad, which includes like Labrador Cedars, and Mayaro, which were the other poorer regions. They already have a version of a development institution. That's LEND, which is a subsidiary of Atlantic LNG, and MyPed, which is a subsidiary of BP. They give loans, microloans to people in those regions. Sangre Grande doesn't have that. So that's my thing. But in terms of local economic development, in these municipal corporations, they only have, from my knowledge, at least some of them, one local economic development officer. So you can imagine you have, in some cases, 14 councillors. Each councillor would have several projects, but let's say each councillor gets one project. Most of these local economic projects is like tourism-based. They have the tunnel in Tabakit, the Knowledge Tunnel, and they want to do a project there. So I sat with them and tried to conceptualize. But then each councillor will have a project that they want to do. But you only have one officer. And here the problem, there's a bottleneck, because you have one CEO. So if the CEO is not minded to support local economic development, if the local economic development officer is not minded to support your project, then woe be unto you for your entire time.
But now moving into the new regime, the funding, it is projected, will be provided for by the taxation collection, the at one level in terms of infrastructure, but they'll be also able to, in some instances, if I remember correctly, to option loans to drive these. How do you think it should happen moving forward? Because at the end of the day, well, whether or not we go into the microeconomic development plans, etc., it comes down to the impact on people. So we could delineate all the plans we want, all the process we want. If it doesn't impact people directly, they're going to say it failed.
I know I took a very long Michael holding run-up, right? So I didn't learn the crease. I wanted to learn the crease, so that would have answered part of your question. The problem is this. Imagine you are in a leader in Power 102, and or in, let's say, the media landscape, in a media organization, and you want to fix one problem. You are one of 12 members of the board. You have to operate through the CEO. But if you are an elected official and you operate in council, and then you have a direct channel to staff, where the staff are directly accountable to you in the manner that secretary in the THA is in charge of staff, then you can give not just policy directives and outline directives, you can give instructions to staff, because you will be involved in the management of a process. So you could be running a committee in a corporation, but you still do have access to direct staff in a meaningful way a lot of times. So you still have to kind of operate through a kind of ad hoc system with the CEO. So the
the whole corporation is what is making the decisions as to what projects they will champion and what objectives they have for the next fiscal. So it's not one person operating in a silo.
Yeah, however, it goes back to the bottleneck of who the CEO is. But if you have this change in local government where let's say you are the tourism and parks development person in the corporation, of course, it wouldn't change immediately. The system will have to change over time. The organizational chart will have to change over time as the recommendations come in. But one of the main things I see happening in the future is if you are in charge of tourism and parks development in a corporation, you will now be able to direct staff. Here, this is what we're doing here. This is your work plan for this month. This is your work plan for this week. This is your work plan for today. They cannot do that, It is not that simple. A lot of times the councillors would try to use the name and shame approach within the corporation to get things done, try to push the weight around, that kind of thing.
Yes, but my understanding, Tehaka, of the new regime is that the secretaries will be appointed, like in the THA, for different responsibilities, one for finance, one for infrastructure, one for parks and recreation, and they will have specific responsibilities. It's almost like a mini cabinet. Yes. And the CEO / the mayor is now directing this mini cabinet to achieve the goals of the entire corporation. Isn't it more organized this way and more clearly delineated this way as opposed to a mayor not having remit over a CEO? Because now there's a particular structure in place, as I understand it, that can champion the objectives of the corporation as a whole, and not each councillor deciding, well, I have this mini project and I have this mini project and I have this mini project, and it's all kinds of pulling of the ship in different directions.
No, remember, it's going to be, just as you have collective responsibility at the level of the legislative, the executive of the THA or cabinet, there will be collective responsibility. Mm-hmm. So it's not, a minister still has to get cabinet approval for something. A secretary still has to get executive council approval for something. When I work in THA in division of finance, you can't, as a secretary, just implement something. You need to get approval at that level. And then there's a program of accountability with the Auditor General's department and so on. So this doesn't change the other monitoring and evaluation and accounting systems that are in place. What it does, however, I mean, it's not going to be you flip a switch and overnight structures will change.
Didn't expect that.
But there will be a continuum, and over time, as the org structures are redefined, because some councillors in the corporations would have used this local government reform, those that are studying, and some staff members would have used this as their research proposal for their master's program. So we could even look to their proposals for suggestions as time evolves. But the bottom line is we know where we want to go with it. And I can tell you, you will find it very difficult to find a single opposition councillor who sat and served as a councillor who will be opposed in a fundamental way. We can always nitpick, because that is the game of politics, right? So you can always find the issues, find fault, because human systems are not infallible. But at the fundamental level, the things that they will not say, in Parliament, when we debate, you more listen for what the person is not objecting to rather than what they're objecting to see if they really fundamentally support or if they are totally opposed to a bill. So,
do you expect the corporations that may be now, depending on the results, held by either the PNM or the UNC or the NTA or PP or PDP, I'm trying to give everybody a fair shake here, to operate differently, though within the law, because they all have their different party philosophies. They all have their different objectives politically and socially, although they all have to operate within the same law. Do you expect different corporations now to operate differently moving forward? And if they are different elements within each corporation, do you expect there to be any challenges moving forward? Because as I said before, at the end of the day, no matter what political issues they have in a corporation, people want service, effective services.
Right. So there will always be differences of opinion, but there is a beauty in that process because having sat in committees with members of government and members of the independent benches, you see persons who bring a perspective that is something that you didn't even consider at all, and it can come from any direction. I don't think we should, as a society, have any issue with how many people put themselves up for service. That is actually a good thing because in some cultures,
agreed, absolutely agreed.
To put themselves up for service, So there's a healthy environment in Trinidad and Tobago. People are free.
Well, I'm glad you said that because very often the way the country is politically constructed now, there's a tendency for a knee-jerk reaction. This one come with the split votes and that one come with split. But the fact that so many people who may not have thought of political office before or public office before are now offering themselves as candidates, whether they are victorious, and it says that more people want to serve for whatever reason.
It also means that they have some level of faith in the system because in some countries people feel it doesn't make sense. There's a level of apathy. So I don't think we should worry too much about that part. What the benefit that you also get is if you are and for example, if somebody's a minister for water, minister for lights, minister for roads, you can't say, well, I'm not going to pave these roads because these people didn't vote for me, So the reality is within the corporation, whether it's yellow or it's red, that doesn't change. If you are in charge of
orange or blue or green.
Or white, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think there's a United Farmers group. So, but if you're in charge of parks, you can't go and fix all the children playgrounds in your area and leave all the children in that area. That So I cannot see that as a possibility because that person will be shamed publicly. You understand? So that to me is an impossibility. And even if somebody does that, there's an avenue for redress, I'm sure, if you are a minority person or even if you are just a burgess of an area. So I don't think you should worry about that because what end up happening now is you could actually point to somebody right now. If you go to I have to scour children's play parks to find a park to play with my children, right? If you now point a finger, they will say, well, is the chairman. Next person say, well, if it's a Boris Emir, next person will say the CEO, and next person is the head of parks. But if you have somebody in charge, like you have a secretary of that in Tobago, they're not confused. They know, okay, if it's a park or a playground, secretary for whoever has responsibility for that. And you could blame that person. And that person will now feel the public pressure to get the thing done because they actually have the power to do so. Councillors have no real power in the way the system is set up,
Well, councillors can take it to their council, and if they're strong advocates, convince the council that this project is one worthy of funding and executing. So I wouldn't say they have no power. It comes back to you advocating for what you want for your burgesses because they voted for you to advocate on their behalf.
Yeah, but when you're in a council with 17 people or 12 people, or
it
10
depends on the strength of your voice.
I know, but I mean, that to me is unfair. If you are in charge of an actual thing as a secretary, you don't have no strong voice. You just have to do the job. You don't have to worry if 9 people who, let's say, for example, the thing you have to fix is parks and recreation grounds, and the other person competing against you, they feel that money should go to something that is equally important, beaches in the area for tourism.
Happens in the cabinet members have to take proposals to the cabinet and advocate for the funding and the support, like the THA, same thing.
However, the difference is when you are in charge of a thing, you have a budget. So therefore, whether your budget is big or small, you have a budget. You could actually have 0 budget if you have to advocate in the current system. But you have a budget, and therefore you'll be judged based on the budget you got and the work done. Right now, what happens is everybody will be pointing fingers at each other because nobody really is responsible in the system.
Yeah.
You understand? And if nobody,
what do you think is important in our last couple of minutes? because your area is business and economic development. What is important in the next iteration of local government so that corporations, no matter who they fall under, maximize potential SME business opportunities? I know you're big on corporations, but and also support domestic or division-led business opportunities.
Right. So I'm happy you asked that question, because even when I campaigned in election in 2020, I spent most of my days doing a training program for anybody who would show up at the office, right? And people were saying, but hey, you ain't trying to win any votes here. I said, no, I'm trying to make a statement. What is the statement I'm trying to make? That Point 14 is a rural community, apart from the oil industry, which is more capital rather than labor intensive. It's by and large a rural community. People need to own factors of production. They need to do business. They need to focus on land and enterprise. And just as for you to have the Premier League in football in Trinidad and Tobago, you have to have a proper school league, and then you have to have a proper grassroots league for people who are finished school but they can't make it to the Premier League. So just to have a robust and strong business environment at the top and the middle, you need to have a grassroots program where you are training people constantly and pushing them to get into business. There are some families that can't even find one businessman in the entire family, but they have a lot of professionals. You understand? And therefore, we need to push some families to say, hey, we're gonna, just as they will gladly give somebody in your family collectively a couple $100,000 to build back their house, or to go for surgery, or to send a son abroad. You understand? Mm-hmm. The same way, if somebody in the family asks for 50,000, not 200, or they could chip up and give it to them. And when they give the person the 200 for the school abroad, we don't ask back for nothing, you know. In fact, if they come to give back money, you vex with them. You insulting me. I didn't give you that for no loan. I give you that for you. So the same way we can push families. So I'm doing a training program this Saturday in Labrie for some young people. There's a youth group there called No Youth Left Behind, and they approached me because I did a training program in Sando last month. And I'm taking that program throughout the area that I grew up in, Southwest Trinidad. So from Aripero, Labrie, down to Palo to Point 14. And I'm associated with a steel band in Marabella, so I do there as well. Because what we need in Trinidad and Tobago is a grassroots program. And I've also started to connect business persons so that they can act as mentors for young people. I will come in and do what is needed in a lot of people is not just the business plan. Business plan at the times is too general. It's a specific credit request. How much money you're going to borrow, you know? And you do a credit risk determination, just as Standard & Poor's did a determination.
But what's the gap? What's the gap that you may have identified? Let's talk about Point 14 in people who may not have come from a family that were entrepreneurial, and that's the difference. People who come from business families tend to understand and move toward opening their own businesses because they've been socialized in that way. There are some sectors in society that do not think that business is for them. They've been told for years that, you know, black people can't run business, this and that and the other. So they've been socialized out of even thinking of running a business, and they've not been trained. So, and if they start a business and fail, they feel that's the end. The self-perpetuating stereotype is reinforced, as opposed to understanding you have to learn as you go along and you will make mistakes and continue. How do you break that cycle, particularly in rural areas?
By just getting one person to do it. I have an aunt who was a business strategist, you know, in Phoenix Park and Auntie Beverly. And she left all of that and opened a business in Marabella selling in the 90s or late 80s fruits and vegetables. You understand? So people say, but you're crazy, you was marketing board manager in Grenada, you big manager here, you understand? But she just decided to do it. And then she left active business, but she invested in properties and she was able to pull her sister, you understand, who was working in the oil company at the time, Auntie June, into the business. And I learned from that because I was in school when I heard.
Yeah, but how she was trained in the corporate world. I'm talking about the average Burgess.
Well, the average Burgess comes in different shapes and forms, because in one family, everybody is not going to be at one level, at a high or low. But what I'm saying is, there are many professionals who believe that they could never own a business, that they never have the time. And they
Or
are
do they even want to own a business because they want to work for somebody and get a salary and do what they have to do?
right. But they may have also good savings, and they are the persons, the big auntie and the big uncle, that people will go to when they want to buy a truck to start a business. You understand? So what I would encourage those people to do, when I went to Ghana as a part of Nigeria as part of a trade mission, I bought some clothes and so on. I came back and started selling. And then my father looked at it and said, okay, he brought in a container of goods to sell. And we packaged stuff, put in the supermarket, and we were doing well. But, you know, we have to go back at it because we have to put these systems in place at the source, which is in Africa. So the point I'm making is once one person in a family is encouraged to start, the family tends to get involved in some way. Once the businesses are a decent business that they understand. So, but the professional who has the money a lot of times is the person who would put the money. As I told you, I started, but my capital was tiny. And when my father saw the success of it, he put some of his savings behind it. Not all, some. But I was significantly more than I could put. You understand? Because I was a master's student at the time. So the point I'm making is the professional in the family is needed. The big uncle, the big auntie, you know, the person who had the little card, the person who, they may not be in business at all, but they have some.
And do you see a role in the corporations in this kind of business development in the corporation areas? Do you see a role for the
yes,
corporations?
Yes. In terms of procurement. So thankfully, because I mean, okay, there are persons who will tell you, forget the side of defense. There are persons who will tell you that the public procurement law would have caused the government to be running the country with hands tied behind its back. You understand? One of
which I don't agree with.
One of my former senatorial colleagues, who I will not name, but who was an advisor on the law to the opposition, told me this, but in confidence, because the official position was not supporting that. The official position was this law is important and so on. But it was so important, it was not enacted. It was enacted, it was prepared as more as an election ploy, if you have to consider that, because it is not something that the advisor to the government on law felt was workable. So therefore it was an election ploy. The law is a straitjacket for small businesses. If you are a small business operator, most of them don't even have a business, but they operate in it. So especially in these rural areas, a young person finishing school, seeing an opportunity, will try to get themselves started. The person will tell them, well, okay, to qualify in the corporation, you have to at least register a business. So they'll run down and do a sole trader because they know about limited liability. They do the sole trader, they come back and say, are you sole trader? And the person say, well, you need to have finances. They will go and beg an accountant friend to write out something for them. Because they don't have the capacity, because it's them and them.
But there's been an opportunity to build capacity and become compliant and eligible.
If I told you who the colleague was, you would see my conviction is strong. Because from a business development perspective, it is impossible to ask. Look, the Minister of Finance had a tranche of $200 million during COVID with $1 million interest-free loans. I know some colleagues in the opposition who have businesses, small businesses who participated in that facility. They up to $1 million for working capital support, interest-free for 2 years. So that was a beautiful program. They participated in it, but they couldn't praise the program. You understand how it is, right? Because that is the guy. That is the political guy. So you participate in something that is beautiful, but they could have, because they have accounts and so on. And they have their statutory obligations up to date, NIS payment, tax clearance, and so on. Most people didn't have that. So the Minister of Finance had an undersubscribed thing. So then he had to say, okay, don't bring in no tax returns, don't bring in no NIS, don't bring in no management accounts. I could do management accounts.
But now it's the law. So if you do that, you'll be breaking the law.
No. So what he did was he said, you don't have to have it. So because the focus was making sure the businesses stay alive.
But he can't do that now because it's the law now. Anyway, we're out of time to Haka.
What I'm saying is that he had to water down the requirements to get that loan just to keep businesses alive. And if people couldn't come for free money because $1 million interest for 2 years is free money, you could pay back within 2 years without paying $1 interest. If they couldn't even come for that they needed, you think they could procure in a corporation? They'll just say, forget that. Leave that for the big
Well,
boys. So therefore, if this loan was so necessary and they couldn't participate during COVID, then it stands to reason that the procurement law cannot use more stringent policies than that loan policy. So therefore, you have to have it simplified. What exists right now in the corporations, there are measures of their checks and balances. There's accountability. The Auditor General does do retroactive audits in every single corporation. So therefore, there are measures, there are checks and balances. Why would we want the small man? Because the small man can't compete with the big guys. So we need to understand that. And that is why, if you noticed, the contributions in the parliament from the opposition weren't that strong against that part of it, where the small man, because they have many small players in their communities. If I look at a simple example, emancipation coming up.
We're running out of time.
I'll leave you this example. Somebody called me from a government office and they said they want to bring some clothes, African clothes. And they tell me, but the person had to be on the procurement depository. I say, well, forget that. Well, they got to use all their own African clothes. Because the small people I know, they're not on the repository.
They're not compliant. All right. Thank you so much. As usual, great conversation.
Yeah. Okay.
Talking about local government and the potential for business. That's where we're going to have to leave it for today. Thank you so much. I got news coming up next, and Steve will take you through the 8 to 9 hour with some calls on the app. Have a great day. Be safe. God willing, we'll see you tomorrow morning.
All right, buddy. All the best here. Be safe. See you in a bit. Folks, keep it locked on. AV is in. Let us get into our news brief.